The Midland Railway was suffering through a locomotive crisis, with their own workshops at Derby being essentially overfilled with the capacity of new engines being built, and many of the British locomotive manufacturing companies essentially being recovered from a labor dispute due to working hours. They would soon turn overseas to the Baldwin Locomotive Works and the Schenectady Locomotive Works of the United States of America for a fleet of 30 and a fleet of 10 for the Midland Railway. This would soon become the Midland Railway Class 2501 class, a fleet of 260 Moguls that were made for the Midland Railway for operations around its system. Alongside the 2501 class, the 2511 class would also be built for operations around the Midland Railway. However, these differentiate from the original Baldwin-built locomotives as they were built by a different manufacturer and were completely different in design. The 2501 class would arrive in kits, and so they would be assembled and replaced into service around goods trains alongside the 2511 classes, in which both of these classes would enter into service around the same time in 1899, with even the Great Northern and Great Central Railways even owning a fleet of those Baldwin Moguls, as they would be all entered into service around the same time as each other around the same year. Despite them being non-standard designs, the Midland Railway Class 2501s were kind of reliable, with their only drawbacks being that they were rough riders while traveling across the Midland Railway system, with the same drawback even happening to the Great Northern and Great Central locos that were built by Baldwin. The 2511s were also too wide for the Midland's railway loading gauge, and so they were to have slab sides across their cylinders to make them more fitting for the British loading gauge of the Midland Railway. Their fireboxes also extend to their caps at around 2 feet, making them operating during the summer an absolute inferno to work at. But they were a godsend during the winter times, as the open caps of the Midland Railway have several drawbacks while operating during the winter season. Despite their flaws, they were worn out by 1906, and the Midland Railway began to withdraw these stopgap locomotives, with the last of them being withdrawn and scrapped by March of 1914, with the 2511s following suit between 1912 and 1915, and just like the 2501s, all of them were scrapped, with even the Great Northern and Great Central Railway even withdrawing their Baldwin steam locomotives, and by 1915, all of them were scrapped, with the Great Central Railway being the only operator to operate a 260 that was now long gone. However, their bogie tenders of the 2501s were reused for other Midland Railway locomotives at the time. However, it is either unknown on which year and these tenders were finally scrapped. The Midland Railway Class 2501 and Class 2511s didn't really make a mark on the British railway system. However, their significance of being one of a few times where America imported a locomotive into the British Isles, these locomotives were unique in their own way, with them helping out a problem that many British railway systems faced. And now, the only other representation of an American locomotive in Britain was a diesel locomotive that was built by EMD, known as the Class 59 and the Class 66. However, the legacy of the 2501s and the 2511s, as well as other fleets of engines that were imported into America, would never be forgotten in the chapter of the Midland Railway and British Railways' own history.